brawler icons being changed to overpowered abilities you've never seen, these are 85 things only old players know in Brawl Stars. Did you know there was a time when you could blow up the battlefield in Brawl Stars? These explosive TNT boxes were exclusive to the heist mode. Just hit a TNT and boom! It would deal 2,000 damage and destroy everything nearby. And although TNTs are gone, their legacy lives on through Easter eggs on many gem grab maps where you can still see these, despite being unable to interact with them. But if there was an award for the most clickbaity gadget in Brawl Stars, it would have gone to Piper's auto-aim gadget. This gadget rapidly shot 4 tiny bullets which dealt 500 damage each. However, despite their name, they weren't auto-aiming bullets and would literally shoot like any other gun in the game. And unless someone chased you in a straight line, you wouldn't do much damage at all. Thank you, Supercell, for clickbaiting us with a gadget. Ugh. Have you ever met someone so bad that you think they have negative trophies? Well, for a short time, this could have actually been true. Because if you won and then lost with a brawler, you could drop below 0 trophies, reaching a new low of -1 trophies, aka the best dynamic player. Did you know brawler exclusive classes used to be a thing? Back in the early days of Brawl Stars, there weren't just 7 classes, there were more. Well, technically not more classes, but super specific ones. Like, Crow wasn't an assassin, he was a toxic assassin, Mortis was a dashing assassin, and Amber? Oh, she was a straight up fire breather. But the best ones? Buzzassin. Unfortunately, this got changed to standard classes. Boring. Many players know that back in 2019, Supercell accidentally dropped an offer by giving 49 megaboxes for just 49 gems. Crazy, right? But in 2020, they did it again, offering 140 megaboxes and 300 coins for only $2. Players went wild, sharing it everywhere before Supercell pulled it from the shop. I am pretty sure someone got fired for that. Back in the day, Shelly's star skin was just another default everyone had. But fast forward to today, and it's one of the rarest skins in the game. If you've got it, you're a true Brawl Stars OG, since you could only get it by creating your account in 2019 and keeping it since. Do you have it?
If you played Brawl Stars during its global launch, then you definitely remember the Leon drama. Right as the game went worldwide, Supercell dropped him as a brand new legendary brawler. But things got messy fast. For the first time ever, Brawl Stars introduced a brawler who was not only insanely overpowered, but also ridiculously hard to unlock. Leon's invincibility ability was totally new, his damage was broken, and unless you were super lucky or cracked open a mountain of mega boxes, you had 0 chance of getting him, making him officially the first pay-to-win brawler. We all remember the excitement of opening boxes and pulling insane rewards, but Supercell thought they were being way too generous, so they scrapped them and replaced everything with star drops. Now sure, everyone knows that part, but what most people don't realize is how much it ruined the experience for longtime players who were already used to the old system. Star drops only give 1 item, and let's be honest guys, it's usually trash. Even today, this is still one of the most hated updates ever. But that wasn't nearly as disrespectful as this next update, because Brawl Stars literally changed the entire way the game was played in just 1 patch. See, back in the early beta days, Brawl Stars was played vertically, and it stayed that way for over a year. But then, just out of nowhere, Supercell dropped an update that switched the game to landscape mode. At first, it was badly received by fans, but in the long run, this update led to so many great features like gadgets and hypercharges. Not to mention that it saved us from tap-to-play gameplay. Yeah, I'm so glad they made this change.
We all know that the Brawl Stars community can never agree on anything, and for a long time, people in the community were actually quite divided on whether or not they liked star drops better than brawl boxes. These, of course, were removed from the game and have only been brought back for events. However, it's safe to say everyone disagrees with this choice. But that's not as crazy as this old star power. 8-Bit used to have a star power where he could just get an extra life. I've touched on how OP this was in Showdown before. However, that's nothing compared to the insane backlash developers faced as a result of this start power. I just hope they don't get any ideas for Kit. Get it? Because cats have 9 lives? Meteors were meant to prevent teaming by hitting people standing close together, but the mechanic didn't work properly, and meteors would just often hit people standing alone. Energy drinks worked vice versa. They were supposed to spawn close to people far away from other players, but that also didn't work, and unfortunately, tamers still exist. However, on the other end of the spectrum, we had Edgar. He was the first brawler released for free, and on release, he was played by literally everyone. If you entered the game of Showdown when Edgar was released, it would just be 10 Edgars in the lobby fighting it out. Ever since this day, my life has not been the same. Penny's Captain Compass was indisputably one of the most useless gadgets in Brawl Stars ever. When activated, it would shoot 5 bombs around you anywhere on the map. This sounds super good and in theory should have been a solid defense gadget, but on top of being super buggy, the delay between placing the cannon and the bombs actually landing was quite long, making it useless in many situations, and therefore got removed in just 5 months after being introduced. But there was actually another Penny gadget that got removed after her rework. The Pocket Detonator was a slightly better ability for her cannon where it would detonate itself. This explosion dealt damage to nearby players and could even destroy walls. However, this was pretty much useful only in close range scenarios against assassins, making it very ineffective against most brawlers. And of course, we can't forget Penny's removed star power, Balls of Fire. Penny's cannon bombs now have a splash fire effect as a passive ability. Additionally, the new star power, Master Blaster, makes her cannon explode on deployment, dealing 1,372 damage and knocking back enemies. Now that's an upgrade. If you're an OG, you probably remember seeing leaks of this minigunner. It was an overpowered brawler which could one-shot the entire map. Okay, maybe not that overpowered, because it was actually a placeholder for Pam while she was still an unfinished brawler, which leakers confirmed in the game files. The leak showed an old bull model which walked really oddly and could shoot like Pam. He was literally able to shoot tons of bullets with his tiny shotgun, leading to players thinking a minigunner was going to be added. I've never been more disappointed. Brawl Stars used to have chips as currency. No, not those chips. Chips were a separate currency that looked like poker chips and could get you any brawler you wanted for a certain amount of chips. You could get these by opening brawl boxes or simply by getting duplicate brawlers. But these were eventually removed, and anyone who had leftover chips received an equivalent value in gems. Did you know Brawl Stars changed its tutorial multiple times? Probably not, but between 2018 and 2020, the tutorial changed 3 times, with these being mostly just map tweaks. But the 2017 tutorial was strange. It taught players to hide in bushes with waypoints and had you defeat bulls and dynamites. If they were Edgars instead, I might have actually played the tutorials. There was a wild glitch in Brawl Stars where you could swap star powers and gadgets between brawlers. I think I've mentioned this before, but it gets even crazier, like giving Mortis Coiled Snake to any brawler or bull using Poco's Da Capo to heal teammates by attacking them. But my absolute favorite combo was El Primo throwing fire punches with Brock's incendiary star power. Gadgets were also swappable, but Supercell quickly patched this in Season 3 update.
Back in the vertical version of Brawl Stars, you had to manually tap in the exact direction you wanted to shoot. There was no aim assist whatsoever. But with the landscape update, Supercell introduced the now infamous auto aim button. At the time, it was seen as a no skill feature, but for global players today, it's just a regular feature we spam all day. What's worse than adding a new level to the game? Well, adding 2. If we're being honest, the level 11 and Gears update is the worst of them all. Supercell dropped 2 levels at once, and it instantly created a massive gap between pay to win and free to play players. If you had money, congrats, you could buy your way to domination. But if you didn't, get ready to grind for weeks and get completely destroyed in every match. And don't even get me started on Gears. You couldn't even use them unless your brawler was level 10, and even then, they were ridiculously overpriced. The only way to get them was by collecting gear scrap, which was a total pain. Thankfully, Supercell eventually improved the gear system, but that doesn't mean we've forgotten about this horrible update.
I bet you didn't know about this bug. The Lily Superbug was a fairly unknown one because it was a bit more tough to pull off in a regular game. However, if you did manage to pull it off, you'd crash the server for everyone. And the craziest thing is, you'd still get all the trophies as if you won the game. Everyone hated release Leon. Leon's release was timed with the global launch of Brawl Stars, and when he was released, he was so broken he ruined the game. The problem was that because he was a legendary brawler and therefore super expensive, he was completely a pay-to-win addition, and Supercell had to quickly drop a nerve to fix the problem. Club Leagues is so old at this point that you may not even remember it. Supercell removed them alongside Club Coins ages ago because the community absolutely hated it. Club Leagues were just an endless grind, but you always felt that you had to play because the rewards were just so good. Luckily, we now have the Mega Pig, which is much better. Okay, somewhat better. Okay, fine. Barely better. Did anyone actually like this mode? Only some of you will remember Lone Star, a mode removed over 3 years ago now. Man, I'm getting getting old. Anyways, it was somewhat similar to Showdown, but people hated it. This is because players could win the game by just picking long-range brawlers and stealing eliminations. And after receiving tons of complaints, Supercell realized their mistake and removed it in 2021. Hypercharges were terrible when they were first released, and people really didn't like them. Like how Cordelius's hypercharge was way too slow. But luckily, as time went on, Supercell gradually changed them to be more interesting, along with fixing all the issues their original concept brought. Most players remember how terrible Colette was on launch. Her damage on release was so weak that characters could literally just out-heal her by standing still. Thankfully, Supercell buffed her rapidly, so I no longer have to wait 12 business days just to get a kill. Did you know that Brawl Stars was actually meant to be played vertically? Well, sort of. You see, in the beta version of the game, the screen was actually vertical, even on devices like iPads. However, when the game was launched globally, it was changed to be horizontal, although some players still managed to find a way to glitch it back to vertical, which I talked about in my last video. Boxes have to be the most famous removed item from recent years. Opening boxes gave you a chance to get coins, gems, XP doublers, brawlers, and more. However, developers decided to remove them in late 2022, instead being replaced by a road to unlock new brawlers. But ever since this update, players have been complaining non-stop and literally begging for boxes to be added back. So in June 2024, devs added mega boxes back to the game in the classic Brawl event update. Unfortunately, this was a limited time event and mega boxes have once again been removed. Please add them back. Did you know you could finish Brawl Stars? Before rank 35, the trophy max for brawlers was 500, aka rank 20. And with fewer brawlers, players easily maxed them out and literally had nothing left to grind out in the game. Supercell responded to this by raising the max rank, but many players have still maxed out their accounts at rank 35. And some players like Pongdalong have even got individual brawlers over 3,000 trophies. My advice, maybe finish a shower instead.
Did you know that Rosa is a straight copy of El Primo? Yeah, when she dropped, players hated her. And honestly, they had a point. She was insanely overpowered. At the time, El Primo was already one of the best brawlers, so Supercell thought, hey, let's just make a stronger version, but with plants. And boom, Rosa was born. But after months of complaints and non-stop rage, Supercell finally nerfed her into the ground. And ever since, she's been one of the worst brawlers in the entire game. From being broken to totally forgotten. What a legacy. Did you know that back in the day, you could actually get the Brawl Pass without spending a single penny? Yep, it's true. Before the big Brawl Pass update, you could buy it using gems. And since gems were earnable for free, a lot of players just saved up and got the pass every season. It was awesome, but then Supercell changed everything. Now you have to use real money to buy the Brawl Pass. On one hand, the rewards did get better, both in the free and paid tracks. But on the other hand, it completely ruined the gem saving grind. So yeah, maybe not their worst decision ever, but definitely one that left a lot of players disappointed. This has to be the worst trio in all of Brawl Stars. Piper, Byron, and Barley. And the reason? They've got zero synergy. Like, absolutely none. It feels like Supercell just threw 3 random brawlers into a group and called it a day. Sure, you can imagine they all work different jobs in the same town or something, but even the lore can't help this mess. They don't vibe, they don't match, and Byron just stands there menacingly. Sorry, trio fans, this one's a total flop.
Supercell was quite famous for refusing to allow to mute emotes back in the day, and they used to argue that expressing yourself was an important part of the game, until they eventually did add the mute button back into the game. At least I don't have to see thumbs down every time I die to an Edgar anymore. What if you loaded up Brawl Stars only to see your main has been removed? Well, that's what Ash mains woke up to during this bug. Before, in duels, if you had a Larry and an Ash on your team, you just straight up crashed the game. And once you did, all you had to do was wait and collect free trophies. Pretty crazy, right? And while we're on the topic of brawlers being removed, Willow is another brawler Supercell had to remove for a similar reason. Her super was just crashing everyone's game. It's pretty simple why Supercell had to remove that bug as soon as possible. Usually when you find a glitch, you want to use it to your advantage, but this bug literally just sucked, because during the Godzilla update, you could swap brawlers with your teammates after the draft ended that allowed you to play with the brawlers below the level 9 power level. So you could have level 1 brawlers on your team. You might be wondering what the point of this bug even was, but the thing was people were just so used to using it to troll and ruin games, so Supercell had to fix it. This next star power was so useless it got removed just months after its release. Tin Can was a star power that gave Mr. P's Robo Porters home base 3,000+ cost more health. However, while that may sound like something overpowered, it was actually quite ineffective. All it really did was provide you with a bit more cover when pushing another player, and allowed you to play a bit more aggressive. But in most situations, this had almost zero impact on who would win a fight. If you're new to the game, there's no way you know about this one. The backup mine was a gadget that allowed Tick to dash forward and place a single mine. It was introduced in March 2020, but just 1 year later, it got removed. Since placing one mine didn't have much impact and dashing didn't give advantage to Tick's gameplay, most players simply switched to Last Hurrah, and Supercell decided that there was no reason to keep it in the game. This game mode was totally broken, and it drove people crazy. The objective of Lone Star was to kill the most enemies without dying. Everyone started with 2 stars and earned additional stars for killing enemies. If you died, you were reset back to 2 stars. At the end of the 2 minutes, the player with the most stars would win. While it was a fun game mode, it ended up being removed due to 2 main problems. The first was massive kill stealing issues that made the game less enjoyable, but the second problem was the high degree of luck involved in respawns, which made this game mode frustrating and inconsistent. If we're talking about speed, OG Mortis had to be the fastest brawler ever. His dash used to be just as long as his current star power, Coiled Snake, but at the time he didn't have to wait for his bar to be fully filled. What's even crazier is he didn't even have one at all, and you could just dash whenever you felt like it. This made him completely unfair in every Brawl Ball match. They should have just removed him from the game. Do you remember these bumpers in Brawl Ball? They were introduced in the stunt show season and bounced the ball a ton, making for some tricky players. Some players used them to get the ball stuck, while others discovered that cacti shared the same code as bumpers, bypassing map makers' restrictions. This led to maps where the ball would bounce endlessly. Supercell eventually fixed this, but it makes me wonder, are cacti bouncy? No, they are definitely not.
And it's time to the worst update ever. Edgar. That name still haunts the Brawl Stars community to this day. When he first dropped, he became the first brawler to have built-in lifesteal on his main attack. Combine that with ridiculous damage and an insane reload speed? Yeah, chaos. He dominated the game until Supercell finally nerfed him with a bunch of balance changes. But even now, they keep bringing him back in those broken event mutations like nothing ever happened. Remove Edgar, please! For this next very controversial update, we're diving deep under the sea. Or at least that's what the season was called, Deep Sea Brawl. We got Otis, some clan quests, and yeah, that's pretty much it. No major features, no wild reworks, just a deep sea theme. If you could count every season since Brawl Stars launched, this one easily wins the award for the most boring update ever. Congrats, Deep Sea Brawl, I guess?
Do you remember mutations? I have to give Supercell some credit here. The City Smash mode was quite fun, but the mutations mechanic was so broken, and for a while, it made the game nearly unplayable. Brawlers being able to bounce their projectiles infinitely, Shelly being able to shoot twice in one shot? Need I say more? The Krusty Krab power-ups had so many exploits for the first week. One massive one was an exploit with Kit, where if you and another player had the Kelp Shake, you could basically stack up infinite power cubes with your super. Sometimes you'd manage to stack up as many as 40 before you even started fighting. Elixir is a resource that exists in Clash of Clans and Clash Royale, but believe it or not, it used to be in Brawl Stars too. Before PowerPoints were introduced, Elixir was used for upgrading brawlers, and when upgrading with Elixir, you had the option to upgrade brawlers' health, damage, or super attack. But did you know Supercell actually broke its company law for this next feature? Ads in Brawl Stars used to double coins, mostly promoting other Supercell games. They were removed to comply with Supercell's policies, yet the game still saw healthy profits. Could this be considered pay to win? Did you know that robots used to fall from the sky? Sounds ridiculous, right? But in the game Bot Drop, which was 3v3, you and your team would literally have to face raining robots. And every time you take one down, it drops a bolt. Once you collect 8 bolts, your team wins. Now, here's where it gets interesting. 12 robots spawned each match, but if neither team hit the bolt count in time, a massive robot would spawn, which on kill dropped 3 bolts. Unfortunately, this mode never came back that popular and was ultimately removed. Back in the beta days of Brawl Stars, you could play co-op. This was essentially a game mode where you and your friends could play against a team of bots. And asking to play co-op was really just a way to tell your friends that they suck. However, the game mode was so unpopular that Supercell had no choice but to remove it. Luckily, today we have friendly battles, which have so many more options and are much more fun. I love friendly battles! If you wanted to guarantee yourself a win in OG Heist, then picking Daryl was a genius move. OG Daryl used to be able to move 23 tiles using his barrel roll super, which is literally more than 3 times its length today. Because of this, many players use Daryl to move their way across the entire map and just shoot down the safe in Heist. But because he was insanely overpowered, Supercell later changed Daryl's roll capacity to 7 tiles. How did Supercell think that this was a good idea?
Now, a lot of players might not agree with me on this one, but hypercharges had a pretty lame introduction. When they first dropped, they were given to early brawlers like Bull, Shelly, and a few others. And let's be honest, they felt like Super 2.0. It was like someone mashed a gadget and a super together and called it a day. People seriously thought Supercell had run out of ideas, but over time, things changed. Supercell actually listened to the community and started tweaking hypercharges into something way more fun. And now, they're one of the coolest features in the game. So hey, glow-ups happen, but not for Edgar. We've talked about the strongest brawlers, but now let's talk about possibly the worst brawler ever added to Brawl Stars, Colette. And there's actually a very good reason why. She was the first brawler to deal damage based on a percentage of the enemy's HP. Sounds cool until you realize that if you deal a fixed percentage every time, you'll never finish the job. Like ever. It's basically infinite math torture. This one mechanic made Colette literally incapable of securing kills on her own. So yeah, her entire existence kind of proved that Supercell might have skipped math class.
Star powers were a good addition to the game, but some of them were way too overpowered. One of them was Shelly's Band-Aid. Back when it healed nearly all of her health, when she dropped below 40% HP, made her so hard to kill, and she could just basically rush you down as much as she wanted. The fact that she practically got an extra life every 15 seconds really angered the community, and Supercell had to take action and nerf it fast. You used to be able to become invincible in Brawl Stars. If you popped Surge's power shield gadget right as you scored in Brawl Ball, you'd become invincible and stay frozen in place, which meant you could easily spawn behind the enemy and kill him rapidly from the restart. And yet this is still less broken than Mortis on release. Who still remembers Power League? When it launched, it was so buggy, but the worst part about this is how grindy it was back in the day. I'm glad it was reworked. Free trophies is something everyone wants, but no one can ever get. But with this old map maker glitch, you actually could. Basically, if you go to win streak and then won a game in a map maker, you'd get trophies. This was obviously unintended, and the community weren't happy, to say the least. Supercell had to quickly patch that one out. This Bull bug took forever to fix. One of the main reasons Bull Super is so good is because it pushes people out of the way. But before he was in his hypercharge, the knockback would just be removed with no explanation. This made his super so much worse. But everyone loved this star power. I'm just kidding. Pat on the back was a star power for Jean and was arguably one of the worst and most hated star powers when it was introduced, because it clashed with Jean's super, which was meant to pull in an enemy, making Pat on the back ineffective and unpopular. This star power allowed Jean to heal a friendly brawler for 2000 HP. However, it was extremely situational, which is why it was removed just 3 weeks later. Did you know back in 2021, there was actually a game mode that was so unpopular that it got removed after only 1 week? Womp womp. Released in July 2021, it started with 2 teams of 2 players, aiming to steal the trophy until the end of the game. It got discontinued because it was a boring game mode overall that was not popular. Players were just using speedy and tanky brawlers that were way too overpowered to compete with. This star power was the first one to ever get removed from the game. Of course, I'm talking about Poco's Swan Song. It was one of the original star powers that came out in the star power update. Nobody used it because it was basically useless. The whole point was to give someone 1000 HP with a super annoying song, which didn't benefit you in any situation. So yeah, this star power really sucked. Did you know Piper was in a boxing match? I'm just kidding. But that's what players first thought when they saw Piper's old reworked profile icon. She literally had missing teeth, and people immediately started making memes about it. Fortunately, the community did enough bullying for Supercell to take Piper to the dentist and add some teeth to her icon. The goal used to be an actual feature on the map, making it super easy for trolls to abuse. For some reason, Supercell decided to leave space behind the goals and make it the spawn point for players. But what they didn't expect is for players to take the ball behind the goal and spam kick and pass, making it impossible for the opposing team to take the ball. After Supercell found out about this, however, they moved goals to the edge of the map.
What happens when you make every brawler stronger with the spice of the RNG? You get one of the most controversial updates ever: mutations. Introduced during the Godzilla update, these let you roll a random ability that boosted your brawler in weird ways. Some were completely useless and others were completely overpowered, like Rico, whose bullets build could bounce infinitely, basically turning him into a one-brawler army. Supercell realized pretty fast that this was a huge mistake and rushed to fix it later in the event, but by then, players had already abused the OP mutations and skyrocketed up the ranks. This concept was brought to many events afterward, and yeah, not exactly a fan favorite update. Let's rewind back to the OG days when Shelly got her brand new star power, Band-Aid. And this thing, it was beyond broken. Essentially, whenever Shelly dropped below 40% HP, she'd heal all the way back to full. Yeah, full health. So what did that mean? Pure chaos. Shelly players could just run non-stop, play ultra aggressive, and never worry about dying. And the worst part, Supercell decided to go on vacation right when this dropped. So we were stuck with unkillable Shelly for almost 2 whole months. I can already picture the showdown lobbies filled with Shellys.
Back in the day, you could use Jean's pole to crash everyone's game. The worst part is, you'd get trophies for performing this glitch too. You'd get kicked out, logged back in, and boom, trophies. This glitch was insane, and Supercell had to disable Jean until they could fix the problem. Speaking of game crashes, this bunny jump glitch also ranks up there with one of the weirdest in the history of the game. After just bugging out all over the place, using her super would also just crash everyone's game. Man, how hard is it to make a super that doesn't literally crash your game, Supercell? Back in my day, the max power level was 9 and everyone was happy. When Supercell adds new power levels, they usually just add 1 at a time. However, in 2021, they increased the max power level from 9 to 11 in just one update. A lot of players hated this change as it was way too pay to win. Speaking of pay to win, early access bundles are a huge mistake from Supercell because they're so unfair. If you unlock a new brawler before everyone else and that brawler is broken, then get ready to just dominate your games while you have an OP brawler no one else has access to. Did you know that buying a brawler only box used to actually be possible? Yep, you heard that right. You would get brawlers of different rarities based on your luck. However, this was replaced by brawler offers, which is a lot cooler because now you at least know what you're getting. What do you think? Should they bring back brawler only boxes? Back in 2019, there was actually a bonus currency which you could use to open brawl boxes and get valuable items. Star tokens were a special kind of token that could be obtained by winning an event for the first time whenever a match change happened. You could exchange 10 star tokens for one big box, which contained many valuable items in the game. Star tokens were removed when Brawl Pass was introduced, but they actually returned in 2024, which many of you probably know. If you were an 8-bit main back in the day, you probably remember how overpowered he used to be. But did you know he had his own secret minigame? By selecting him in the menu and pressing his buttons just right, you could trigger a 6-second countdown. And boom, you'd be sent to Supercell's official site to play Project Laser, where you flew and shot enemies in space with 8-bit. Honestly, I think Supercell put more effort into this than they did into Brawl Stars itself. Many players think the Godzilla event was a genius new idea by developers, but it's actually not. It's just a remastered version of Brawl Stars' old Super City Rampage mode. Back then, it was inspired by the classic Godzilla movie, with 3 brawlers teaming up to stop one massive monster that wanted to demolish the entire city. However, it wasn't as popular as Supercell hoped and was removed shortly after. But after a couple years, Supercell decided to reinvent the game a bit, changing the name and some of the mechanics in the game itself, turning it into a much more popular mode. Back in 2021, Power Play was a limited mode where players could play 3 matches per day and earn points to unlock mega boxes or skins. And by playing perfectly, players could earn a max of 1,386 points per season. However, the rewards were way too expensive, like the gold mecha bow skin that cost 50,000 points, meaning players had to grind 36 perfect seasons just to unlock it. The grind was so tedious that most players simply just gave up. Supercell later replaced Power Play with the Power League, but then replaced with Ranked as we know today. Grinding Power Play was literally a full-time job. Can I go home now?
Hey, just one question real quick. Why so serious? Okay, that was weird. But this is a typical thing a Chester main says. When Chester first dropped, he wasn't just a joker. He was a broker. He was broken. Get it? Okay, I'll stop. Anyway, Supercell introduced this chaotic, unpredictable brawler with randomized supers and insane burst damage. His 4-ball attack could literally one-shot half the most of brawlers. But if we're pointing fingers at what made him truly busted, it was totally that stun super. It didn't just lock you in place, it hit like a truck and basically guaranteed a free kill. Thankfully, Supercell nerfed him hard, but let's be real. Even today, Chester's still a complete menace. Back in the beta days of Brawl Stars, Daryl wasn't just rolling, he was basically a car. His super had such insane rage that he could fly across the entire map with one spin, crash into you with those shotguns, and delete you in seconds. And even after global release, he still came with a handful of bugs. Honestly, Daryl might have been Supercell's first $10 walking glitch nightmare.
Everyone knows that money is the best gift of all time, so in the early days of Brawl Stars, Supercell would actually give out coins as a reward for playing matches. Coin boosters used to cost 20 gems and increased coins received by 50% for 7 days, while Coin Doubler cost 50 gems and doubled the next 1,000 coins received. This works similarly to the way that token boosters do today, but coins used to be the only resource for leveling up your brawlers. However, this was removed during 2017 as Supercell had made plans to rework the game's entire currency system. Speaking of currencies, most people don't actually know about this forgotten currency for special events. Players needed tickets to enter Big Game, Robo Rumble, and Boss Fight. You'd get 5 tickets whenever a new event opened, and the more tickets you used, the more tickets you earned. In Robo Rumble, using the maximum 20 tickets could get you up to 620 tokens. But in 2020, tickets were removed and the game modes were reworked. Everyone remembers when gears were released in 2021, but the way Supercell introduced them was a massive fail. When you still needed gear tokens to upgrade your gears, they were super expensive, and upgrading them took forever. Luckily, we have the reworked gear system now, which is so much better. Nowadays, when you respawn in Brawl Stars, you start with 33% ammo, and I think we can all agree this is fairly reasonable. But back in the day when you respawned, you'd start with 0 ammo, which made brawlers that could reload fast super broken compared to characters with slow reload speeds. This was a huge mistake, as with certain brawlers, if you lost map control once, you would just be unable to leave your own spawn. Get me out of here! Many players remember when brawl boxes got removed, but do you remember them breaking the game? When Supercell removed brawl boxes, a bug occurred for some players that caused them to have their trophy road rewards refreshed, which gave some players an insane amount of credits and coins. Supercell compensated players who didn't get the massive boost in progression, but me personally, the only compensation I want is a primo buff. If you use this bug to gain trophies, then you should be ashamed. When duels got released, sometimes you would get placed into a match with bots instead of real players. This was to make sure the queue was full as players spread out over the leaderboard. However, if you clicked play again after a game against a bot, you'd play against a bot again. You could repeat this infinitely, and for obvious reasons, this completely ruined the leaderboards for a while. Most players don't know that in the very early stages of Brawl Stars, players only had tap to move controls. These controls were incredibly frustrating, and trying to move your brawler around the map took way too long. Even worse, the controls were often imprecise and wouldn't even move the brawler to the right spot, leading it to quickly be replaced with today's much better controls. Back in 2019, there used to be a super op star power that players hated. It was called Extra Life, and it would literally give 8-bit an extra life, allowing players to have 2 lives in game modes that have no respawning. This gave you a significant advantage, and by camping until the final zone would almost always give you a win. This made Extra Life a literal cheat code to winning that caused everyone else to shatter their screen.